the right to vote to women, that excluded Native Americans, that excluded Latinos. Of course, if you come forward this time and say, I don't know why they did it back then, it was a sign of time 200 years ago, but if it were today and you were there, you would not do that. You tell yourself, I would never sign on to that document, and yet you can in this document. In this document, you have failed to specify the things that end the segregation for our students whose command of English does not exist. You have failed to take the courageous act required to spell out that which is required from the school district. I urge you, in this time that you have to reflect upon this document, is to put aside the interest of the school district is only interested in $50 million, and to put these students first, and to have the courage to do that. Dr. Hawley, you say you're a man of data, that you like looking at the data. Look at what Mexican American Studies produced. It's unprecedented. It is a model, and it needs to be spelled out here very specifically and not dodged. I don't want to be in front of a superintendent. I don't want to be in front of a school board majority, and certainly don't want to be in front of a federal judge trying to argue what your language meant because you failed to be specific. Thank you.
I have John O'Dowd, Mike Wilson, and Mary Carol Combs.
Dr. Hawley, members of the panel, my name is Cam Juarez. I am one of two new board member elects. We were elected just recently and are really in a catch-up kind of mode, trying to learn as much as possible. Dr. Hawley, it was really nice to speak with you this afternoon and get some of that information. So I was frantically trying to write down some notes that were meaningful. So with that, I'll read off my notes here. So again, my name is Cam Juarez. I'm a TUSD parent. My child attends Ochoa Elementary in the Early Learning Center. And in looking at the plan and in discussing that plan with you and some of the staff at TUSD today, we had some insight. And some of that insight, of course, is insight that we've been talking about for a long time. I got my start in the political processes here in Tucson back in 2000 with Prop 203, which was a proposition that eliminated bilingual education in the state of Arizona. Tucson is the birthplace of bilingual education, and as I mentioned in our meeting, ELL, the dual language components are very important to me, and I understand that there's a case pending with another judge, and that's important to recognize as well. But more importantly, we talked about having components in the plan that would have some teeth, something that would be able to bear its fangs, if you will, when need be. I am a strong supporter of ethnic studies, Mexican American studies. I got my undergrad from the University of Arizona in Mexican American studies, and as I explained to you, I had not been offered a quality education in my K-12 years, and it was an experience under Lupe Castillo and some of the other teachers at the University of Arizona that I was able to achieve a master's degree in urban planning from the U of A with a very high GPA, and I owe that a lot to MAS. The declaration that's been provided by some of these students in the audience is not only important to consider, but indicative of the type of civic and intellectual leadership that the TUSD schools can provide. This is something that is important to consider. I echo the aforementioned need of a title director of ethnic studies versus a coordinator title. Again, I believe that is also going to provide some significance in how we move forward. We talked about the 4.5 years that this plan will impact initially, and I mentioned that we need to go beyond those 4.5 years. I stand by that. The last thing I would say is the Cabrera report is an important document. I read through it briefly, and I also agree that it needs to be included electronically as part of the general packet, if you will, for folks in the general audience to understand. So I appreciate the members from DOJ to understand that we need that in there as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley and the council for this opportunity to address you. I'm born in Tucson. My dad was here, graduated in 1928. I graduated in 55. I had my children graduate in 1988. I have a daughter who's entering next year, so she's class of, I can do the math. But anyway, she's going to be here. I think there are three subjects I want to address briefly. One is the MAS and ethnic studies. I know with a penalty of $3 million hanging over your head and the State Department of Education after you that it was a tough choice to make. I'm just hoping that you'll come back with an even better program, because I think that's in a way we need to show our defiance to the people up in Phoenix that think somehow we can't do something special for our Mexican American children. And as far as the post-consent order, I don't see Native Americans covered. I think they're a legitimate minority, and I think that somehow we'll try to get the special master to look at white Native Americans. After Fisher Mendoza, which was primarily a segregation case, there was a complaint originated in this school that affected all the three high schools on the west side and University High. It was approved by the Office of Education. And that basically addressed the lack of equity in education and the lack of rigors and availability of courses to which the minorities would be enrolled and go forward. A lot has happened. Magnet courses have been generated to address this, but there's a lot that needs to be done for the minorities to make sure they get a very rigorous education and have challenging courses. And that's back to MAS, just that was a very novel, unique, complex creation of this school that reflected the culture of this school and the culture of this city. And for us to neglect having that kind of course and to take credit for it and to go forward with it would be very bad. So thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tucson. My name is Mike Wilson, and I'm a member of the local tribe of Tucson. And I want to welcome everybody to Awesome Land. This is Awesome Land that we're on. This is not Aztlán. This is my sacred land, and welcome to Tucson. When I look at TUSD's standardized testing results, multi-year aims mastery in reading, writing, and math, 2009 through 2012. As an ethnic minority, my people, my students, are the lowest performing. Over this 3-year period, in reading, 56th percentile, passing. In writing, 43 percentile, passing. Math, 32 percentile, passing. Of all the ethnic groups, we are the lowest performing. And my question is, as we as Tohono people, or we as Native people, why are we being excluded from this Unitary Status Plan? You would think that the lowest performing ethnic group would be included in writing the scales of justice. and because my people are again, historically excluded from any type of remediation. We are being excluded from justice. Justice for all is not being served because my people are not being served. And so in first reading, the plan is not unitary, it's exclusionary. And in closing, I want to say a word in support of ethnic studies, in support of the Mexican American Studies program. Why? When a state legislature begins to mandate the closing of ethnic studies curriculum, we lose our history. A people without a history has no future. Elimination of ethnic studies, the deliberate elimination of ethnic studies by the Arizona legislature is a deliberate form of ethnic cleansing.
Madam Carol Evans, John Cromco, and Richard Pestello. Come forward.
Good evening, Special Master Hawley and panel members. Thank you for your presence. My name is Mary Carol Combs, and I'm a parent of 2 children who attended and graduated from Tucson Unified School District schools, Menlo Park, Hollinger, yay, Richter, and Tucson High. I'm also a professor at the University of Arizona in the College of Education. I work with English language learners and teachers of English language learners. I just want to add my voice to the many who have supported the document generated by our youth, intellectual warriors, and Mexican-American studies. But I also want to address another section that I think needs to be expanded in the plan. And that's the one that deals with English language learners. And it seems to me that the final plan should relieve English language learners in our district from an atheoretical, unscientific, and segregative 4-hour grammar and reading block, which is enforced currently by state education mandates. Seems to me that any unitary status plan addressing desegregation must address what to many of us seem is a blatant example of de jure segregation of population of students who deserve just as much as any other group. Segregation of these kids is not only illegal and enforced, it's also potentially unconstitutional, and I'd like you to think about that when we go back and review the document.
Good evening. My name is Carol Evans. Like many of us, I am an immigrant to Tucson. I came to Tucson in 1991 for the wonderful job of working in teacher preparation in the bilingual education program at the University of Arizona. I'm so proud to have many former students teaching in TUSD schools. Since my first year in Tucson, I have had the pleasure of placing pre-service teachers in TUSD classrooms and have done so every year. The preparation of teachers is to a surprising degree about relationships, expecting the best, believing, challenging, and acknowledging and building on the wonderful knowledge and talents that students bring. In that way, it's a lot about teaching students, public school students. Currently, I have 23 students finishing up their field work in excellent classrooms at Hollinger, Monso, Pueblo Gardens, McCorkle, and Borden. There are some really wonderful teachers in TUSD. Something that worries me about the master plan is that there's talk about certificated teachers or certified teachers, but there's not any talk about relationships. Now, this may sound like I'm getting a little touchy-feely, but it's quite frightening and maddening when you think about it, because this lawsuit is really about Latino and African-American children, and in many cases we're talking about children from rich linguistic and cultural backgrounds, but from low SES homes. And we know from the research that they are vulnerable, and that relationships, stable relationships with teachers, teachers who understand the richness that they come from is key. It can make all the difference in the world. In spite of rhetoric in the plan about bringing more Latino students into advanced learning programs, there's no concrete support for dual language programs. There is the planned dismantling of well-established bilingual education program, dual language now at Hollinger, and the only dual gate program which exists at Hollinger. The idea is to move those programs, I suppose, but I wonder, in the interest of the importance of stable relationships for children, how are these children going to be helped by moving those programs? I'd just like to say quickly, okay, let's see. The plan damages well-established successful programs. It does not send children to less segregated schools. It does not promise the kinds of concrete improvements that TUSD children need, like limited class size, like a rethinking of the segregated ELD classrooms, like more support and development of dual language programs. And finally, I just wonder, what is the rush about making these decisions? I wonder why the old school board is going to make this a decision and not the new. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Cronco. I was a big community activist when this case was filed. And then I spent 14 years in the legislature and finished up 26 years of teaching and retired. And it looks like I'm not going to be around for the end of the case. It's, Mr. Master, you tell the judge. The problem with this case is that nobody is responsible. That's what the problem is. Nobody is responsible. That's problem number one. And number two, there's reverse incentives. See, we told District 1, you get this problem solved, and we'll give you $64 million a year until you solve it. Well, if I were in charge of District 1, it would never be solved. And that's what the problem is. Every homeowner, now I'm a homeowner, I get whacked $200 or $300 a year, every year for this program. And I'm tired of it, you know. You tell the judge that I've had enough. What the judge needs to do is get rid of the reverse incentive. It's a reverse incentive, that's what it is. The judge needs to start tapering that down, and any expenditures out of that $64 million have to go to achieve integration. They've been spending it for all kinds of stuff. You tell the judge if he wants written proof of what every expenditure is for and how it furthers the goal. That's the first thing. And the second thing is people need to be held responsible. You tell the judge what he should do is take the top 2 or 3 levels of administrators at District 1 and cut their pay 1% a month until this problem is solved. We wouldn't have all these issues, you see. This guy knows he's getting whacked 1% a month. They're going to meet every day. And they're going to solve this. And you won't have to go through all this. Just tell them to do that. Those people are responsible. I don't need a minute anymore. Those people need to be held responsible so they will have an incentive to solve this problem. And that's all there's to it. Whatever else is done doesn't matter. Make them responsible. And I'll write you a letter about it. Okay.
I'd like to have come down Betts Putnam Hidalgo, Patrick Powers Lake, and Lillian Fox.
I did not take that person. Good evening. I am Richard Costello. I'm a longtime educator at the state of Arizona, namely TUSD. This past weekend, I hadn't been to a University of Arizona football game in 4 years. I went to the game this past Friday, and disappointed, of course, with the football team, but you know that the TV screen that they have that shows everybody and anybody in the stadium, I was elated to see the number of kids of color in the student section at the University of Arizona. To include the band. And that's what this is all about. This is all about kids being successful, not necessarily having to go to college or going to college to be successful, but at least having the opportunity to make a decision at the end of their high school years that yes, they are prepared to go on to school. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I read the plan rather, and I'm going to read to you because I am concerned about the number of coordinators and directors that are being recommended to make this plan work. And I will try to read it all within the time frame. Director of Desegregation, Director of Student Assignment, Director of Magnet Schools, an assistant to the Magnet School Director, Director of Recruitment, Director of Professional Development, Coordinator of Professional Support, Family Engagement Coordinator and Support Staff, New Teacher Mentors, which I would imagine that's just going to continue, Coordinator of Culturally Responsive Pedagogy and Instruction, Coordinator of Advanced Language Experiences, Academic and Behavioral Supports Coordinator, Dropout Coordinator, Director for Support Services for African American Students and Achievement, Director for Support Services for Latino Student Achievement, providing Latino students with the necessary support services. That's relatively new for the Latinos. African American studies have been doing that for the African American students. This means a lot more employees. Director of Multicultural Curriculum, Family Centers, I don't know how they're going to be staffed. Academic Intervention Teams, I don't know how they're going to get staffed. School Resource Officers, does that mean that are going to be paid by the DSEG funds? Restorative and Positive Practices Coordinator, Restorative and Positive Practices Site Coordinator, School Budget Operations Expert, a district office employee to conduct review and analysis of the current capacity of Mojave and other district data collection and tracking systems. And finally, the special master will have a implementation committee made up of 3 independent expert advisors. Granted, you may need all these folks to make this happen, but let's not forget what's going on in the classroom, and that's where the money should be going. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Betts Putnam Hidalgo. Thanks, everyone, for all of the work that you put in on this plan. I have a son in the district, and I've been very focused on this issue for many years. As my shirt says, I fully expected my son to be able to participate in ethnic studies classes, and so when they were canceled, I was pretty devastated. And I've been wearing this t-shirt ever since, and I hope to be able to retire it after this process. Thank you so much for the work that you've done on this. I really, really appreciate it. In addition, however, I support everything that was said about our English language learners. I believe that they are really the most vulnerable voices in the district, and that they will not show up to public forums for whatever reason, whether they're recent arrivals, whether they're undocumented, whether they are recent refugees, for whatever reason, I don't think that they'll show up and that you'll get many of their voices. And so I have been talking to people, and I have some letters that I'm going to leave for you that are their commentary.
I would like to see the dual language programs expanded. I would like to see the 4-hour pull-out program canceled. And the only reason I say that is because you're basically taking on the state when you bring back culturally relevant studies, and so I'd like to take the state on this one too. I agree with the person who said that it may well be unconstitutional, and I actually think that a lot of what our state legislature does is unconstitutional. I really want to thank you for addressing the discrimination that exists throughout the district in all of the tiny details that you found, and I so appreciate that. You picked up the fact that in racially concentrated schools, we get brand new principals who have no experience. You picked up the fact that we get brand new teachers who have no experience quite often. That's not always a terrible thing, but those schools are charged and they require an amount of experience that I appreciate the fact that your plan picked up on. In addition, I really appreciate the transportation for open enrollment schools. The fact that we didn't have transportation for an open enrollment meant that it was open enrollment for me and my friends, but not for instance, a lot of the English language people that I've been speaking, or the ELLs that so need these services. What else? Really, I mean, I sound all I can say is thanks. And the corrections on the English language learners. I think the family centers are a great idea. In reference to the last comment that was made, I noticed that a lot of the directorships, etc., don't have to be new positions. They can be people who are designated as such. And if we keep on closing schools, we should have lots and lots of assistant superintendents to go around because they won't have any schools to supervise, and so they'll be able to work on desegregating the ones that are left. Thank you.
Really quickly, is anyone utilizing sign language services? You have my way? Okay, so we just want to make sure that one that would be able to dismiss people. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patrick Powers-Lake, and I'm here to say thank you for the African American Studies program. Back in September, the program approached my son, and it was the first time I saw my 13-year-old get excited about doing something new, that it was his idea. So he actually enrolled in the African American Studies Male Leadership Academy, and in the few months he's been involved with that, we've seen a tremendous change in his attitude and his academic performance. As well as not only engaged Sean, my son, they've engaged us as his parents. And it's just amazing to go to the meetings on the weekends when they meet on Saturdays and see these kids actually perform and do positive things. They actually need these kids to work together for team building. 13-year-old boys holding hands doing team building. It's pretty amazing. And so I just want to express my appreciation. I'd like to see this program stay and grow and have more actually, possibly have some of the counselors and educators in each of the middle schools to help these kids. But I've seen the positive impact from what they can do. It's been tremendous. If they can expand that, I really appreciate it. And now they've been planning on doing more and more volunteer work in the community and other things. So I'm grateful for the program for not only myself, but for my son. And I really support the program, and thank you guys for having me.
I'd like to have Juan Carlos Valdez, Michelle Gutierrez, Curtis Acosta, and Keisha Coleman.
My name is Lily Cox. Thank you. I appreciate your work, but I sure don't envy you. I think what you've got to do is very difficult. I'm a retired TUSD teacher, and I'm used to speaking in front of people, obviously, but it makes me very nervous when I have to be negative, and I'm going to have to be negative, so I'll get more and more nervous. My two concerns are the lack of books for minority students. I think you'll find that they're far less likely to have textbooks to take home than some of our wealthier populations. I think if you check TUSD's data records, you'll find that minority students are far more likely to have subs who are long-term subs who are not qualified to teach their subjects than wealthier students do.
My first year teaching in the district, I taught at Sabino, which is our highest performing regular school. It's a wealthy school, and the kids are great. And every single student had a book to take home. There was no kid who didn't have a book to take home. So as a science teacher, I assigned reading on a regular basis. We had no problems with passing reading tests because they got experience reading at home in history and in science. You can't have kids become good readers just reading novels. Then I moved to Sabino my next year, or Choya my next year. That's a West Side Mexican-American school with Native American population too. No books. The only students who had books to take home were in math class, and every student had a math book to take home. Earth science, biology, and general science, no textbooks to take home. We only had classroom sets of books, so you couldn't assign reading. If you assigned reading, you had to do it in class time, which meant you had to make a choice about are we going to do labs and activities and lecture stuff, or are we going to read in class? So our kids really get shorted as far as reading experience do. They don't develop the reading comprehension levels that they need to do well and proceed in sciences and engineering and almost doing anything else in life. They simply don't have books. Now, today at Choya, we're worse off than when I came. We no longer have math books for the kids to take home. We no longer have chemistry books for the kids to take home. I was on site council for the last 2 years. We were not allowed to participate in the budget process. When the principal finally decided to show us the DSEG budget the district had approved for Choya, we had 2 Mexican-American girls on the site council, students, and they said, isn't this money supposed to be for us? And the principal said, yes. And they said, well, where's the money for the books? And there was no money for books. And these girls were IB students, and they said, we don't have books to take home, and the chemistry book we have to use in class doesn't have a back on it. Teachers are more likely to have subs instead of experienced qualified teachers in these schools, because as the 2 speakers ago said, we're more likely to get inexperienced principals who do crazy things, and then you see a rapid turnover in teachers. We had an inexperienced principal and lost 40 people the first year. Pueblo lost a quarter of its teachers last year. Hoboken lost half of its teachers. And it's not because of the kids, it's because of the administrators. You need to check the records, and when you do this plan, you need to make sure that there's money available so that teachers have books for the kids. The reason they don't have books is teachers a lot of times are afraid to issue books because we tend to be high turnover schools, and you're more likely to lose your books, and then you don't have books next year. So you need to provide money so that you have books, money to replace books, so that every kid has a book to take home so they can read, so they can do the math. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Juan Valdez. My name is Juan Valdez. I'm a member of class Chicano School Studies in Tucson Unified, and I was a facilitator for a coalition that happened last Tuesday, and I also helped write the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors. I'm here to represent THS Mecha. We feel that ethnic studies classes are vital to our education since we've been robbed off in these classes. We feel we were denied or deprived of our right to just education. Since the elimination of the courses, we have taken time out of our lives and dedicated our weekends to taking education into our own hands. We did this knowing that our former school board did not support these quality classes, nor our right to them. As you sit here listening to the rest of the forum, we hope you keep in mind our love and dedication to ethnic studies. And do not forget that this does not only affect us, but the rest of our kin. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. I'm so used to saying buenos dias in this place because this is my home. I want to thank the Tohono Oda Nation for allowing us to be guests in this sacred land. This sign right here, my name, by the way, is Curtis Acosta. The sign right here that's in front of this dais today is a sign I used to hang in my classroom just right above here, across from the balcony. So welcome to Tucson High, home of the largest Chicano study program in the nation. We have been proud for a few years. We're really proud of the work we have done. It's an honor to follow one of my former students and current students, Juan Valdez. Juan and I meet on Sundays in our back alley Chicano Studies class at the John Valenzuela Youth Center. It's a back alley course because we're not allowed to teach it here anymore. I want to thank you all and the special master and everybody that contributed to writing this plan. And especially the section that embraces culturally responsive pedagogy. Since it's theoretically the restitution of the program I'm talking about, Mexican American Studies and our team and director. However, it is still theoretical. Since restoring our MAS program is not named, and the Cabrera report, which was about our classes, is not in the appendices. And two things that I think are a little, are a vast, actually not a little, a vast oversight. Restitution of MAS classes as core classes needs to be very clear. Otherwise, we'll be stuck in a nebulous position with the guilty party, TUSD. I'll get to them in a second. I also want to support the youth document that Juan and my former students and the youth from this community, as well as community members, the intellectual warriors. I want to also state that we must end segregation in VLLs. We cannot cower to the xenophobia and the bigotry of this state and its laws, unconstitutional laws. And that must be clearly stated. We must not have a desegregation plan while segregation is still in our schools. It's important to remember the context. The guilty party in this case, TUSD, has continued to work in bad faith, squandering millions of dollars without any systemic reform or consistent transformative academic experiences for Latino and African American youth. In fact, when our team of teachers in MAS did achieve consistent results, leading to increased graduation rates, improved test scores, and most importantly, healthy and loving human beings who were civically engaged